All right, let's talk about installing our new oil filter. So we've taken the oil filter off, we've drained it, we've collected the oil in the bucket, we've made sure we've cleaned up our mess. And now before we go to install the new filter, what we want to do, grab some cloth, grab a pad or a rag, and clean the filter base. The other thing you want to do is check actually the face, the mounting face of the filter, just to make sure that the seal from the last filter didn't get stuck there. We can't ever install a filter with two O-rings or two rubber seals on the top. What that's going to actually do is promote or allow a leak to occur. So you always want to check, make sure that it's not there before you go install the new filter. So we've looked it up, we put it in the Napa online tool, and we've told it what the engine that we're working with is. We found the cross reference, and this 7243 is the right part number to put in there. Now, when we get our new filter, something we want to be aware of is you want to make sure you have a filter come in good packaging. Think about the fact that a filter is there to collect the particles out of the oil and take the contamination out. Now, I'm going to open up this filter here, and what we can see is that inside the box it also has another plastic wrap. That would be ideal. That's great because that makes sure that any dust and debris, who knows how long this filter's been sitting on the shelf, isn't inside of our filter. Our oil's going to come in the center, go through the outside, come out these little holes into my system. I sure don't want it just picking up a whole glut of dust and debris and sending that right into our bearings. Let's say the first oil path is, as we can see on this engine, to the turbocharger and likely to a main bearing. Well, I don't want to send that contaminated oil directly to a turbocharger where it could cause significant damage, or a main bearing where it's going to cause significant damage. So starting with a nice wrapped oil filter like this is ideal. All right, so once we've got that, we want to make sure our area is cleaned off and we have some good clean engine oil ready to go. So we always want to lubricate our seals when we install them. And then we also want to read the side of the filter. So I'm going to unwrap this. We only unwrap our filters right when we're ready to install them. We want to reduce the amount of contamination. So I'm just going to open it up to read it. And like it says on the side of the filter, really handy for us, it says clean the base, oil the seal, turn the filter on until it touches, and then turn it an additional 3/4 of a turn. Then we will see that we put oil in, crank to start until we see pressure, and then we can start the engine. So that's a really good practice written right on the side of this filter. So what's helpful on these filters is often they have an indicator mark. Now this one may not. This one does not. Often they have an indicator every 90 degrees or every quarter turn of rotation, so you can see where your quarter turn is or where your 3/4 turn is. So what I'm going to do is open this one up, and we see that I've got a rubber seal on the top of this filter. Now, I don't want to install this seal dry. If I put a dry filter onto a dry base and then I turn it until it's tight, often what's going to happen is this seal, when it gets lubricated, it just sits really tight. It gets really hard to work with. So what we're going to do is grab a little bit of engine oil with our glove, and we're simply going to wet the seal. We don't need to fill the filter. Depending on your manufacturer, some manufacturers will tell you they abhor the idea of filling filters, and some manufacturers don't care. For the most part, I'm not a fan of filling or pre-filling filters for the reason that often you're not using filtered oil in here. So this filter has a micron rating, a beta rating to clean the oil. And new oil that comes straight out of the jug is not generally clean enough to be at the same level as the filter. So it'd be better for your pump to pick up the oil out of the sump, send it through your filter into your engine, than it would be to use new oil straight out of the container. Now I know that sounds out there, but I've done a lot of particle counting on oils to know that new oil in the OEM containers, regardless of the brand, generally doesn't meet their own cleanliness guidelines. All right, so now we take this filter and we're ready to install it. And again, I didn't pre-fill my filter, but I did moisten the seal. So I'm going to rotate this until it's just lightly touching. So you see, I'm not putting a lot of commitment here, really lightly putting it on there. I'm going to back it off and go until it touches. So this would be touch. And so now what we want to do, as per the filter, we want to listen to it because it's saying, hey, the tension is going to be set by the thread pitch on the side of the filter. And we want to say, okay, I'm about right here. So I'm going to look at where my 3/4 mark is. If I were to continue to turn, what am I going to get to? And whatever is right about here is going to be my 3/4 mark. So just before this indicator is where I'm going to stop. So now that I've touched, I am going to, with my bare hands, I'm going to, or with gloves on, I guess, but just with my hands, I am going to turn this filter until it's 3/4. At that point, right there, the oil filter is on correctly. Now, I want to show you, just for the sake of showing it to you, because some of you are going to say, well, I've always put filters on until they're tight. So I'm going to show you, I can continue to tighten this, even by hand. And then I'm going to show you that I could continue to tighten it even more with a filter wrench if I wanted to. See how it continues to tighten? All I'm doing is squishing the seal. When I do this and I let this run through operation, as this goes through heating and cooling cycles with the filter on the filter base, heating and cooling, because I've over-torqued this filter, some of you have had an experience before where you've needed to grab a strap wrench such as this one, and then you've needed to put a snipe on the end of it just to get this filter to come off. Sometimes you've also needed to simply take a chisel, put it at the edge of the filter base, and just start hitting it with a hammer to get this filter to come off. I've been in that place as well. And the reason for that is the filter was over-torqued at the time of install. So I'm going to back this one right back off. It's way too tight. And I'm going to once again bring it back up to the correct tension. I'm going to bring it up to finger tight. And then I'm going to look to see where my 3/4 mark is. That would be right at this 4/3. That's right there. So when my 4/3 is indicated right here again, I'm going to be happy with it. Just like that. So now my filter has been installed to touch plus 3/4 of a turn as per the manufacturer. This filter will filter the oil correctly and be serviceable the next time without needing a chisel or some other form of destructive method.